Hey friends, Christopher J. H. Jones here. I really just go by Chris. I want to talk today about The Bones Stand Up. It's part of the Trinity Flynn universe. The first book in that series is Trinity Flynn and the 5 Points Gang. The second one is a little different. This is a collection of short stories. Now, when I wrote Trinity Flynn and the 5 Points Gang, one of the most common things that I heard from fans of Trinity Flynn is, what happened to these other characters? We open with Trinity on vacation in Belgium, trying to rescue a young man who is shell-shocked and essentially in slavery on the coast of Belgium in 1920, in the summer of 1920. And there were a number of men like that who had been lost during the war. Their families didn't know where they were. The armies didn't know where they were. And they were picked up by unscrupulous businessmen who forced them to work for pittance wages and or no wages at all, telling them that their families were dead and nobody wanted them and they were the only ones who were going to take care of them, sort of psychologically abusing them. Anyway, Trinity gets involved in trying to rescue one of those, a guy named Gilles Orentin. He's a Frenchman that Trinity was childhood friends with. So a lot of people were wondering, well, what happens to Gilles? Well, as to what happens later on in Gilles' life after Trinity and he attempt their daring escape, I'm not going to tell you that because that's going to show up in a subsequent book. But I thought it would be interesting to look a little bit at what kind of person Gilles was before he ended up being incarcerated and had his horrible circumstances happen in the war. So one of these stories, it actually has to do with Gilles, and we bring him back from when he was a younger person, called This Rest to Which I Go. We also have The Sting of the Camel, which features a guy named Sebastian McIntyre. In Trinity Flynn and the 5 Points Gang, Sebastian McIntyre is Trinity's flying instructor, a guy who's teaching Trinity how to fly. He had his experience in World War I as well. He was part of the famous Lafayette Escadrille, which is the most famous American air division in World War I. They fought actually under French colors for a fairly large amount of the war before being transferred to the Army Air Corps toward the end of the war. Sebastian is a veteran of that combat, and we get to see him actually go into combat in a story called The Sting of the Camel. A Memory of the Air is a Trinity and Sebastian story when they're together in New York at a New York air show. And you get to kind of look at one of the American pastimes of the early 1920s and actually all the way through the 1920s, which was air shows. Air travel and airplanes, Zeppelins, all kinds of things were so new. People wanted to go see what they could do, these amazing flying machines. You still have air shows today, and people still go by the thousands to see these, but they were enormous events, looked forward to for months in advance. They would have air races and all the same kinds of things they have now, and also flights of experimental aircraft, which is going to get somebody into trouble in this particular story. Then we go to Under a Weeping Heaven, which is an origin story for Zlatica Lata Rakoczy-Nemchikova, who is Lata Flynn after she marries Rasmus. And the story of how she became the very difficult to pin down character that she is. Let's just say that her upbringing was a little different and left her scarred in ways that are going to become important in the Trinity Flynn series down the road. And the final story is And This Gives Life to Thee, which is the story of how Lata and Rasmus met each other. It does not go well. And I'll talk more about that in a subsequent video. This is The Bones Stand Up, a collection of Trinity Flynn short stories. It's available at dramaticpress.com, and I hope you pick up a copy.